Hey, all you cool cats and kittens. Wait, sorry. I've been watching way too much Netflix lately. And apart from that, I've been missing baseball, man. Some crazy times we're living in right now. So I thought, with that, I thought I'd put some into this next demo that I'm doing for my blog. I thought I would put in some baseball stats. Now, these aren't ones pulled from MLB or anything. These are just some random tables I made on the fly to illustrate today the difference between related and related table. When I was first learning about this, it kind of confused me. I wasn't really sure when to use what, and I would just watch like some tutorials and just type in what they were telling me to, but I never understood why I was using certain functions and why the results coming back were what they were. I never felt like there was a good enough explanation, and I just that I could find to explain to me why it was happening the way it was. So I thought once I finally did get my head wrapped around it, that I would try to explain it in some more detailed terms. So if you really don't care why related and related table work the way they do, you can stop watching now. But if you do and you're trying to figure out, okay, once I know why it's working the way it does, then I'll know which one to pick. That's how I am. And so that's what I'm trying to do with today's demo here. So let's hop on into the scenario that I've come up with for us. And the scenario, like I said, I've been missing some baseball. And so I just came with this random scenario saying, like, well, what if we were tasked with putting all the stats that our boss wanted into just one table? And I know what you're thinking if you've had any experience with Power BI is that it's always better to have one fact table and that reaches out to lots of dimension tables. So that way we're not using as much space and RAM and the processing speed is better. But for today's illustration, instead of doing, because a lot of times we'll use measures to show this kind of stuff, but you don't see the results as quickly. I thought it would just be easier to show in the data view once we get into the Power BI desktop. But another scenario could be, maybe you're put in a situation where you've gotten the data from different departments in the data tables, and someone's given this to you, but they're not going to let you go back and change the original data source. So you're not allowed to go back into Power Query Editor to do these kinds of things that we normally would do with the M language. So now you're stuck, based on what's been given to you, that you have to use some DAX formulas. So that's what we're going to do. So let's just take a look here. And in the background, feel free to read this. If you want to, I'm going to attach it to the blog as well. These are just my thoughts when I'm planning these things out of how to explain things. And in my blog, I'll type up some of this, but not as much of it. But if you want it, I'll put it in there for probably a PDF download or something. So again, we're tasked with, we've got these 4 tables down here: home run derby stats, seasons with team, all player stats, and player salaries. And our job to do is that we are supposed to get, for each player, all of their home runs total put in, how many seasons they've been with our Braves organization put in, and their average salary put in as well. And so to do this, we're going to use related and related table. Now, first things first, when using related or related table, you must have a relationship, okay? You must have a relationship in order for this to work. Your relationship, this is the way that our tables will talk to one another. And we do this through a unique key column. And in this case, it's going to be through player ID. So I've already set this up in Power BI, and I'll show this once we open up the program in a little bit. But that's how our tables are going to talk to one another. So what we need to do is we need to pull in the number of seasons that a player has been with our team. And it's located in this table over here, but we want to put it into our new table. So let's just look at this table. This is our current table, all player stats. This is our final table that we're going to want to add on to. And we just want to put the seasons that each player's been with the team. Now, could we type this in manually? Of course. Well, what are the issues with that? Well, we could mistype something. Or if this was real data over all major league teams, that's going to take up way too much time. So what we're going to do is we're going to use what's called the related function. So let's take a look at what the related function does. So this is going to be the formula that we're going to use in just a second. It says related, and related is what it's going to do. It's going to say, hey, you want me to go to another table. Yes, that's what we want you to do. Okay, well, related is saying, well, what table do you want me to go talk to? Okay, I want you to go talk to the seasons with team table. Okay, so I'm going to go talk to it. And then once I get there, what am I supposed to do? I want you to bring back to me the number of seasons with team column and bring back the value associated with my player ID. So remember a second ago, I said that the way that these tables talk to one another is through their player ID. All right, through our player ID is how we talk to one another. So here's how it's going to work in our scenario. We are currently on the all player stats table. We give it the related function. So it starts here, it says, okay, I'm currently on Braves 1 table. I'm currently talking about Braves 1 in my all player stats table. I'm going to reach out to the seasons with team table and look for player ID 1. If I find it, which we see that we find it right here, then I am supposed to return the number of seasons with team, which is 5. So when we get to our new table, which is down here, we see that there's this new column put in, seasons with team, because that's what we called our formula. That's what we called I haven't shown you that, but that's what I'm going to call it in Power BI. And we put in the number 5 right here. Okay, well, it's done with that. Well, now what does it do? Well, now it says, so this was Braves 1. Braves 1 brought back number 5. Now it's going to move down to the second player ID column, Braves 2. And this is saying, hey, are you related? Braves 2, are you related to this table? Yeah, I sure am. I'm over here. Here's Braves 2. Okay, they're related. So what do you want me to do? Oh, yeah, bring back the value in this column. So I'm going to bring back the 2, and it brings back the 2. And it's going to do this over and over and over again very quickly. But we see that we have an issue. Well, not an issue. It's just it doesn't work at one point. When it gets down here to Cardinals 1, it says, hey, Cardinals 1, are you related to the seasons with team table? Oh, you're not? Okay, so in this new column that you had me make, this new calculated column here, I'm going to put in a blank. There's nothing to put in there. So that's how related is working. It's reaching out to another table as long as they have a relationship and it's saying, okay, hey, we're related. What do you want me to bring back from our relationship? And so a nice way I kind of like to think about this, I'm an former algebra teacher, but still teacher at heart all the time, is that related is like when we make relationships with people. We're looking for how are these tables talking to each other? Because just like when you have a relation with someone, once you have that relationship, then you can share things with one another. You can share memories, share things about your lives, and then you can talk to one another. So that's why I like the fact that Power BI uses the actual function name related. So just to show you that this does work in Power BI. So again, here's the model. Here's how they're all talking. The seasons with team and the all player stats are talking on player ID, which we see right here. All right, and so now let's actually go and type this in. So I'm going to go to my all player stats table, which currently only has the all-time batting average. That was the only thing that was already in our table. We're supposed to put in a new column here, a new stat to bring in. So what we want to do is we're going to come up here to the top under Table Tools. If you have your new ribbon turned on, we're going to click on New Column. And once we click on New Column, I'm going to call this Total Seasons with Team. All right, and the total seasons with team, and here's where we're saying is this isn't part of our table. We have to reach out and touch another table to bring this back. So we need to see, are we related to that table? So we're going to say related. And if I come over here a little bit, it says related will return a related value from another table. Okay, that's what we want. Well, what table do you want me to talk to? Well, I want you to talk to the seasons with team table. Okay, I'm going to go talk to that table. If I find a match in the key column, what value do you want me to bring back? I want you to bring back the value that's in the number of seasons with team column. And so I'm just going to tab over to put this in, close it off with our parentheses, and we're going to hit enter. And if all goes according to plan, we are going to get 5, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1. Again, we don't have anything for Cardinals because there is nothing for Cardinals. It was part of our all players. So I don't know why it's in our all player stats table. It just is, but it wasn't part of the other table. So they're not talking to each other. Nothing to bring back. So that's related. Related is one of those easier, not easier by any means, but it's more of a simplistic way of thinking. Go out, look in the other table, see if we have a relationship. If we do, great. Bring back that one value associated with our relationship. All right, now let's get into the one that's a little bit more difficult. At least it was for me when I was first learning. Related table. Related table is when we need to bring back not just one value, but multiple values. So for example, on that last one, seasons with team, you can only have one number of seasons with the team that you're on. You can't say, oh, I was part of the Braves for 6 seasons and 19 seasons. It doesn't work that way. But for our next task at hand, when we're trying to bring back our total home runs that we've had in all of our home run derbies, that's not just one number. I mean, it could be no numbers if you didn't make it to the home run derby, or it could be multiple ones if you've made it multiple times. So we can't just bring back one value. We're going to bring back multiples, which is why we actually don't bring back, we don't bring back one value. We're going to bring back an entire table to our new table. So what does that mean, right? So again, let's start this from the beginning. What's going to happen is they still have to have that key column where they're going to talk to one another. So we're still going to do the same thing. We're going to say, hey, are we related? Yes, we are. Great. Bring back the values that I want. But they're not going to bring back just one value. They're going to bring back an entire table. Thus the word table at the end of related. This is saying I'm going to bring back a whole table right back to you. All right. Well, once we know we can't put a whole table into just a little cell, so we've got to have something we're supposed to do with that table. So we're going to use another function as part of related table. Related table never works just by itself because you can't put a whole table into a cell. Once you bring back a whole table, we're saying, okay, what do you want me to do with this? So now let's take a look at this over here. Here is our all player stats table updated with the number of seasons with the team. And here's our home run derby table. So we see that some of these players were in the home run derby, like Braves 1 was in 2015, 2018, and 2019. Let's see, I think Braves 5 didn't get to go whatsoever. So we have all of this data. So if I want, just let's talk about generically. If I wanted the total number of home runs for Braves 1, and I wanted to do this by hand, it's not that hard. I go, okay, I want it here at 14, 15, or actually, you know what? That's not Braves 1. Let me get rid of that. The next Braves 1 was down here at 1 and down here at 7. So we can add that. Again, not hard. But just like I did, I mistakenly highlighted something that shouldn't be, so we want the computer to do it for us. So let's use some DAX. So let's take a look at this. We start off with, and here's the whole formula, so you can see it right here. And I'm going to break this down just like an algebra teacher. When we do functions, we always start with the innermost function first. So this says related table. Okay. Good news here is it works very similar to related. This says, hey, I want you to reach out and touch that home run derby table and see if we have a relationship, which we know that we have an active relationship, but we want to know, does it actually exist for every single player ID? And if it does, this is key. Bring back, notice I don't put an extra, like, and when we did related up here, sorry for jumping around, but just to show you, when we did related, where was my formula up here? Once we reached out to the table, we said, okay, bring back this column value. Well, related table, it's not doing that. It's saying, hey, bring back this whole table. Okay, I brought back a table. Now what am I supposed to do with it? Well, now this is where sum x comes in. And sum x is an iterator function, which instead of taking the sum of an entire column, it's going to go row by row and pull the numbers out from a specific column to add up. So the sum x can work over an entire table. Unlike the sum function only works for a column. So like in order for the sum function to work, you've got to give it just one column. If you give it more than one column, you break the system. Sum x is different. It's more special. It says, hey, give me a whole table. I'll eat the whole thing up. But what do you want me to eat up with that table? You want me to go row by row in a certain column and sum them up. I'm hoping that's making sense. I'm trying to put this in, non-tech lingo. So here we go. So let's actually just look at what it's going. Again, you can read all this as you want, but I'm basically talking us through it right here. So this is what we're going to get. All right, this is going to be our output result. And let's see, how did these numbers come through? So I'm going to get rid of what we started with here. Get the eraser. All right, so I've erased everything, starting fresh. So here we go. Here's our DAX formula, sum X related table. So we start inside first, related table, home run derby stats. So we're on all player stats with Braves 1, and it says, hey, go look at home run derby table and see if there's any Braves 1 rows. Sure, we've got one here. We've got one down here. And we've got one right here. So what gets returned at this point, what's happened right now is we are bringing back a 3-column by technically 4 rows if you want to count the header rows. All right, but these 3 columns are brought back plus these 3 rows of data that we're interested in. But we can't fit an actual table into a little cell that's going to be over here. So this is where sum X goes, okay, you've given me a table. Now I know that I am, because I'm on the Braves 1 row, I'm supposed to add up all of the Braves 1 rows, but what column do you want me to add up? Well, that's why we put here home runs. We want you to add the home runs column. So it's going to go, okay, I'll add the 14, the 1, the 7, which gets us down to our 22. All right, well then what does it do after that? Well, then we go to the next row of our data, which is at Braves 2. We say, hey, go reach out and touch that home run derby table, see if we have any Braves 2 rows. All right, so when it gets to this point, what is happening is this has all been erased. Okay, and I'll erase Braves 1 here too. All right, when it gets to the second row, it's now starting with this brand new table all over again. And it's going to go through this whole table and look for any Braves 2 player IDs. Well, we have one. We've got a Braves 2 right here, and we've got a Braves 2 right here. All right, so again, what has happened is we've reached out, touched the home run derby table, and we have now brought that entire table, this entire table of data, back over to our table. But we know we can't put a whole table here. So the sum X goes, oh, I know what you want me to do. You want me to take this new table, which is just 2 rows of data. You want me to go row by row, and based on Braves 2 ID, which is all we're giving it, you want me to add all the numbers in the home runs column. And that's exactly what's going to happen. So we should get a result of 21 if we did this correctly, which we did. We got a 21. So before we go into the Power BI desktop, let me just talk about this one more time. And you can fast forward through this part, but because I just mentioned it. So the difference between sum X and the sum function, which I have right in here, is that with the sum function, you can only feed the function a column. If you say sum and then you give it a table, you break the system. It doesn't know what to do with that, all right? It would just be like if you put water and you put a liquid in your gas tank. Well, if it's not gas, it's not, you've broken it, okay? You have to give it gas in order for it to do its job. Same thing with sum X. Sum X needs an entire table to go over row by row, which we call an iteration, in order to do its job. So based on the function you're working with, you have to ask yourself, what do you need to do your job? Do you need gas? Do you need water? Do you need solar energy? Whatever it might be, but a sum X, it needs a table each time to do its job. Any of our functions that end with the X are going to need that because those are called iterator functions. And we're going to talk about one more of those functions later on. But let's go into Power BI Desktop and see if we can actually reproduce these results. So we're back on our all player stats. And let's put in another new column. And this time, again, we're trying to get our total home runs. And I'm not going to write from home run derby. I'm just going to go total home runs is equal to, all right? So first, the one thing with DAX, and it used to, would get frustrated, is trying to get the whole thing done all at once. And if you make mistakes, you make mistakes. It's not the end of the world. So what I first started doing is like saying, well, what do I need first? Okay, well, for this one, I need it to talk to another table. Okay, so I'm going to do that part first. So I know that I need to go to another table, and the table I need to go to is the home run derby stats table. Okay, so I've got that. All right, so if I return that though, then what else am I trying to do with that? Well, once I've gotten that table, I want it to add the numbers. Okay, so now I'm going to go in front of here and say, okay, I want to sum X those numbers up. So now I'll put, even though sum X is the first part of the formula, I don't always write it that way. And the more comfortable you get with it, I'm sure this will make more sense, but sometimes it's good just to start from the inside out. So we're gonna go sum x, and the way sum x works here, let me zoom in. The way sum x works is it says, hey, you need to give me a table, and then once you give me the table, give me an expression. What am I supposed to do with that table that you've given me? And so I'm going to zoom back out here. So let's come back over here. So related table, home run derby stats, which we've got. All right. The expression. All right. So now we're saying, okay, well, what column are you going to want me to work with? So again, we're going to say, all right, we're in the home run derby stats table, and I want you to go to the home runs column. So over that table of home run derby stats, go to the home runs column and iterate row by row of what's been returned to you and add those numbers together. Let's click enter and see what happens. Let's see if we get the right values, which we do. All right, Braves 5, nothing. Cardinals 1, nothing. Why? Because they didn't exist in the home run derby table. All right, so now for this last one, real quickly, because if you got some X, you're good to go. You know, you could stop now. You can comment below if you want to, say great job. But if you didn't quite get it yet, I'm gonna do one more, which is called average X. All right. With average X, we're gonna do the same thing, except we are not gonna sum the numbers up. We're going to take their average instead. Again, we could do it by hand, but in order to find the average, we'd have to add all the numbers associated with the player, then divide by how many numbers we actually were using. We don't want to do that. So Power BI does it for us. They've already programmed average X for us. So let's take a look at the formula. Average X related table, player salaries, column salary. So it says, hey, go out and touch my player salaries table and bring it back to me if we have a relationship there with the rows. After you get that, then we're going to go row by row through the salary column and average all of those numbers together. So for this one, I'm going to do Braves 2 just because there are less of them. So let's pretend Braves 1 had already done it for there. So when we go to Braves 2, it's going to come down here. Braves 2 is going to bring back this whole row, and it's going to bring back this whole row. All right, are there any other Braves 2s here? No, there are not. So it's going to take these two numbers. So we've brought back an entire table, but we know that we can't put a table here. So average X says, okay, you've given me my table. I can now do my job. And my job is to go row by row based on Braves 2 and take the numbers in the salary column and average them together. And if we add these two numbers and divide by 2, we end up with our 592,709. Okay, and just by the eye test, that looks like it's pretty much the correct average. All right, so let's go over to Power BI and let's see if we can actually get this done. So we're going to come over here, back to all player stats. I'm going to put in a new column. So I just right clicked and did a new column this time, a little bit different. So we're going to, again, we're going to call this the average salary. So average salary is equal to this. I'm going to write it all the way through. We know we're going to want to find some averages. So average X, because it's not average, because average means give me my column now. I can't give you my column. The column doesn't exist in our table. So I'm reaching out to another table, so I have to use average X. Okay, well, reach out. How do I reach out to that table? Okay, well, we go related. Now, you might be thinking, wait, why is it related table and not just related? I'm going to talk about that in a second, too, because that was the other thing that always hung me up. So related table, what table do we want to talk to? I want to talk to the salaries table. All right, so salaries table, I close that off. Okay, once you give me that salaries table, now you got to tell me where to look. So again, we are in, let me scroll over. We're in the player salaries table, and we want to look at the salary. And then we were going to close that off. Let me zoom back out, make sure we have enough parentheses. We got our outside parentheses looking good, inside parentheses. We've got our column name looking good here. Let's click enter. And perfect. We got some numbers here. It put the formatting here for us, which we're in currency, English United currency. But let me change this up a little bit. Come on now. English United States. Let's get those if there's any. Yep, so we got 60 cents here, 40 cents here. So we're looking good. And that's exactly what I had over here in OneNote as well. All right, except I didn't format it to English currency. I should have, but no, I didn't in the demo. All right, last thing, and then you can get rid of me. When do we use related versus related table? All right, that was something that, got to me, and it sometimes didn't make sense. And so I tried to make sense of it here, and we're in this section here. Right here. Related is used when you need to reach out to a table, but you know that you're only going to be returning one number back. All right, you're just getting that one number back. There's nothing to do with it. So when you reach out to that other table, your key column number should only show up in that other table once and only once. Now, if your key column is going to show up multiple times in the table you're talking to, well, that means you can't bring back just one number. You're bringing back multiple rows of data. So if you're bringing back multiple rows, you're bringing back a whole entire table. So that's when you use related table. Another teacher trick, related table has more letters in it than related. So related table is the one that brings you back more information. And plus it has the word table. So it's going to bring back a table. All right. So with that, I hope that this made sense. I hope that we were able to, if you had a decent working knowledge, hopefully I made it a little bit better with understanding the backgrounds of it. Again, this is not a super advanced technique for those of you who've been doing Power BI for many years, but for someone new to the DAX language, this was novel to me, and I wanted to figure out a way to make the most sense of it to someone else who is just starting to learn, because that's what I'm always here for. So again, anytime you come back and check out a video, my goal is not to make it the most tech savvy and advanced. My goal is always to make sure you can understand it in simple, plain teacher English language. All right, comment below if you liked it, and let me know if you want me to change anything else about future videos.